oldest, darkest reaches beyond our solar system, past where sunlight is nothing more than a memory. A machine built by humans has been drifting for nearly half a century. Voyager 2, launched in 1977, wasn't built to return, only to witness. It crossed the planets, exited the heliosphere, and entered the interstellar medium as humanity's furthest emissary into the void. But while the world moved on, Voyager 2 kept listening. And last month, it spoke back. Not with a technical update, not with radiation or solar data, but with something no one expected, a transmission so structured, so deliberate, and so wrong, it left experts frozen. At first, the message seemed like background static. But buried inside was a repeating burst, precise, rhythmic, and unnatural. Scientists decoded it, thinking it was interference. What they found instead was terrifying, a pattern, intelligent, complex, and absolutely not from Earth. And when they traced the event back to its source, they realized something was moving near Voyager 2. Not drifting, not orbiting, and tracking. And in that moment, the old spacecraft became something more than a machine. It became a mirror, one reflecting a truth we've long denied. Voyager 2's instruments, though outdated by today's standards, are still remarkably sensitive. They're designed to pick up the most subtle changes in plasma waves, magnetic fields, and cosmic radiation. But in a recent batch of data pulled from the Deep Space Network, a low-frequency spike appeared, one that repeated every 11.2 seconds. That's not cosmic background noise. That's a clock. Engineers initially dismissed it as a software glitch caused by deep space interference, but when they pulled older telemetry logs, they discovered that the same pulse had occurred once before, weeks earlier, and had been missed completely. Now, with AI-enhanced filtering tools, the data painted a disturbing picture. The pulse wasn't just recurring, it was increasing in strength, and it was coming from outside the probe. Even more chilling, the pulse appeared to carry a spectral signature, a fingerprint if you will, inverted hydrogen resonance, the most abundant element in the universe, but twisted. Some called it a cosmic anomaly. Others believed it was intentional tampering. But either way, the silence of deep space had been broken, not by noise, but by something that knew how to speak mathematically. Using triangulation and frequency delay analysis, Mission Control determined that the source of the pulse was not stationary. In fact, it was moving along a vector parallel to Voyager 2's trajectory, almost as if it were tailing the spacecraft. But this object didn't follow any known orbital mechanics. It accelerated and decelerated in short bursts, completely defying the gravitational influence of any nearby mass. When analysts tried to simulate its path using Newtonian physics, every model failed. The object wasn't coasting. It was correcting, adjusting its speed in response to Voyager's faint transmissions. And it wasn't broadcasting in our direction. It was reflecting the signal, bouncing a modified version of Voyager's data stream back into the void like a cosmic echo chamber. Theories exploded across classified communication lines. Was it a rogue satellite from a forgotten mission? A relic of an alien civilization? A cloaked surveillance system? Whatever it was, it had waited in silence for decades until now. And Voyager's signal might have been the trigger. Things got stranger when linguists and signal theorists were brought in. Because within the anomalous transmission, there were binary segments that didn't originate from Voyager 2's command protocols. When visualized using pattern recognition tools, those segments formed symmetrical shapes, spirals, fractals, and geometric alignments that eerily resembled ancient symbols found on Earth. From Sumerian ununiformed to Nazca glyphs, they weren't just signals. They were glyphs encoded in waveforms. And the deeper scientists looked, the clearer it became. The structure of the message was non-random and eerily consistent with how intelligent beings might encode visual concepts using electromagnetic harmonics. Some speculated that this wasn't just a broadcast. It was a test, A way to measure whether humanity had reached a point where it could even recognize a message buried in such complexity. And that test had just been passed. Voyager had become an interstellar trigger. And someone out there had finally decided to answer back. Then came the final piece. A young physicist at Caltech ran the signal through a deep neural AI designed to simulate cryptographic responses. What came back wasn't just a translation. It was a recurrence. The AI began producing predictive responses, patterns that mirrored the transmission's logic, anticipating what might come next. That would be impossible unless the signal itself was recursive. A loop meant to provoke interaction, like a riddle waiting to be solved. At the same time, Voyager 1, located billions of miles away, registered a magnetic fluctuation similar to Voyager 2's original pulse, 2's spacecraft, 2 anomalies, and a growing sense that these weren't isolated events, but part of something coordinated. The question was no longer what is out there. It became why now? Why after almost 50 years of silence would something suddenly respond? Just as humanity reached the cusp of decoding it. Just when scientists thought they had more time to decode the message, Voyager 2 went completely silent. At first, ground control assumed it was a hardware malfunction. After all, the spacecraft is over 46 years old. But then, a wave of identical anomalies struck. Deep Space Network receivers, not just in California, but across Spain and Australia, all reported a perfect loss of signal at the exact same timestamp, 1437 UTC. The chances of a global simultaneous failure, practically zero. This wasn't equipment error. Something had cut off the signal from the outside, surgically, deliberately, and with timing that matched the very pulse pattern Voyager had detected. But it didn't end there. 5 minutes after the blackout, a narrowband radio wave hit Earth from the same quadrant of space. It carried no identifiable structure, but its strength matched that of signals we've only ever observed from distant pulsars. Except this wasn't from a neutron star. It was from somewhere near Voyager 2, and it was getting closer. In a classified briefing, data leaked from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory showed a chilling update. A foreign object had begun to alter course in response to Earth's Deep Space Network pings. The trajectory showed the object adjusting slightly every time Earth sent a command or signal burst toward Voyager 2. The implication: this thing wasn't just hearing us. It was studying our method of communication, learning how we ping and probe spacecraft. Worse still, its path was no longer random. It was on an intercept trajectory, not toward Voyager 2, but toward our solar system. Analysts gave it a code name, Echo Lantern. Why? Because it seemed to behave like an entity mimicking light and shadow, communication and silence, turning our own technology into its beacon. And the deeper we looked, the more apparent it became. Voyager 2's signal had become a breadcrumb trail. Not for us to find something, but for something to find us. As the mysterious object moved closer to the heliopause, the invisible bubble that separates solar winds from the interstellar medium, a strange thing happened. The solar wind itself bent. Instruments aboard NASA's IBEX probe and NASA's solar orbiter recorded a dip in solar wind pressure followed by a complete collapse of flow along a narrow corridor stretching out in the direction of Voyager 2. That's never happened before. Not in the decades of halo physical data we've gathered. Solar wind is constant unless interrupted by something massive like a planetary magnetosphere or an unknown field emitter. And yet this corridor, now called the solar veil, remained open for 3 hours before collapsing in on itself. And inside that corridor, no radiation, no particles, just silence. It was as if something had opened a door, not through space, but through the physics that govern it. Scientists are now calling it the first evidence of intentional manipulation of solar particles. And the only candidate capable of triggering it was still tracking near Voyager 2. And then as suddenly as it went silent, Voyager 2 spoke again. But this time, the data wasn't just telemetry. It was encrypted. That's impossible. Voyager doesn't have encryption protocols. It was built in the 1970s. And yet, when Mission Control decoded the binary stream, they found a rearranged version of the original Golden Record transmission, the message we sent into space back in 1977.